Hello everybody, how's it going this evening? Well, we'd like to have you invite your friends, because it's going to be a really good show. Invite your friends, share this out. We are broadcasting on 88.1 KPPP LP Radio Fargo-Moorhead, on Facebook at 88.1 Fargo-Moorhead, and on YouTube at Duke1517, and on Twitch at A Mexican Crossing Lines. It's going to be a good show tonight. Hope you enjoy the information. All sorts of stuff happening today. We got President Biden giving a speech tonight. We have Mike Lindell, the Pillow Guy, and Jimmy Kimmel. All sorts of stuff going on. Plus, we have information to share with you that I'm sure you'll be willing to hear.
That's right, and if you want to get a hold of us, you can leave us up to a 3-minute message on our call-in line at 701-566-0917. Let us know what you think. Comments are appreciated. You can follow us on Twitter at media_PPP, or you can email us at cindy@kpppfm.com or duke@kpppfm.com.
And if you have time, go to kpppfm.com and have a look around at our programming, our past shows, and our history, as well as making a tax-deductible contribution to our organization so we can keep on bringing you information like we're bringing you today. It's kpppfm.com/donate, and it's tax-deductible.
Great way to support local broadcasting.
That's right. So you quit getting that fake news, start getting some real news. Well, we're going to go right into it here and enjoy the show.
Good evening. Welcome to A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You are listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP, Fargo-Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And I am covering the fake newsing of the Biden administration. Have you noticed that that's going on? There is so much fake news being spread about the Biden administration. And it strikes me this evening as the Biden administration is going to unveil a lot of new programs and initiatives that the president will be putting forward, including free daycare, and he's going to be unveiling some new tax credits that he's going to make the summer lunch programs for kids a permanent thing. We had that during the pandemic to help kids get the nutrition that they needed. But they're going to try and turn that into a permanent thing. And they're offering as well a plan to give people 2 years of community college free.
Wow.
And there's going to be a lot of stuff that is going to happen in this State of the Union address. As if this president wasn't already hugely popular. It is starting to look to me like former President Trump, not only will he go down in history as the first president to lead an insurrection, a coup attempt against his own country, but he may go down in history as being the most unpopular president in history. Partially because of the insurrection, but I think also because of his horrible handling of the pandemic. We know that he lied about the transmission of the virus. He knew it was incredibly deadly, as he told Robert Woodward. And he also said he lied about it to Americans because he wanted to play it down. He said he didn't want to create panic. He told us that he didn't care about mask mandates. He ridiculed governors that put into place safety mask mandate orders in order to protect people in this public health crisis. All of that was undercut by our own president during a deadly pandemic that has already claimed over 500,000 lives in this country. The rollout of the vaccine by President Trump, also a horrible misstep. The testing was not available. The PPE was not available. The PPE was being purchased and stockpiled and sold to other people. The vaccinations were not available to the states. I mean, it was a mess. The entire thing was a total fail. It was a total mess. In comes President Biden promising to vaccinate 100 million people in his first 100 days. He's blown that statistic. He's blown past that statistic. He not only met his goal, he exceeded the goal. And he not only exceeded his goal in vaccinations, he has signed into order so many executive orders undoing many, if not most, of what Trump did during his entire presidency, because I don't think that Trump passed any significant legislation, bipartisan legislation, in the entire 4 years that he was in office. All he did was try to do it by executive order, which can be undone just like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's the choice that he made. Instead of trying to pass bipartisan legislation, the party of no, the party of we don't do government, the party of small government, and now the party of we don't do government, has been fixated during this new administration on how can we get Americans to hate Joe? What kind of fake outrage can we create about the Democrats being in power, the Biden administration, Biden and Kamala Harris themselves? What can they do? They tried to give us the Biden laptop nonsense. They tried to pull all sorts of stories about Kamala in her past and all of the things to try to make us angry about the way that this president is handling his first 100 days in office. They're saying he's doing an awful job at the border. You had Republicans who didn't really care about what was going on at the border heretofore, saying that Kamala Harris has to be down at the border. And they've looked and looked and looked for ways to try to really knock this president's approval rating down, and outrage centrist Democrats, I guess. But after the harrowing 4 years of the Trump administration, especially the last year during the pandemic that Americans went through and have survived somehow, miraculously, the bar was set so low of what our expectations were that most Americans, yes, even Republicans, are just elated that there is an adult in the office of the presidency. With that said, America still has a lot to improve upon. We are still a country that is incredibly divided, something that a healthcare worker put into this very funny video, kind of summing up the stupidity, the ultimate stupidity of how divided and divisive Americans are about everything. Just take a listen for yourselves.
Come on over to America. Yeah, where we give people leadership positions, but we won't hold them accountable for any of their actions, even if it leads to violence and death. Also, where we won't even do the bare minimum to protect each other, such as wearing a mask and following simple guidelines during a pandemic. But wait, it gets better. We call ourselves Christians. And we only care about each other if it's convenient for us personally. Don't try to inconvenience us. We won't do it. And we're so privileged here. We think a barrier over our face, such as a mask, is taking away our freedoms. And we don't believe in science either. Conspiracy theories are more fun. And don't worry, in America, we don't care about our healthcare workers. We know they're stressed, but that's not our problem. That's their problem. And here in America, we like to complain about the pandemic and how it's ruining the economy. Don't you be fooled. We're not going to truly inconvenience ourselves to help end the pandemic. Take a safe and effective vaccine that's going to help end the pandemic and get our economy going again? Nope, that's not for us. Because all of a sudden, we don't believe in science. Yay! So if you want to have fun, come and see us.
I mean, Republicans' new shtick is basically to try to undo any good that Biden and his administration are doing, including discouraging people from wearing masks or from getting the vaccine. You know, it's funny how she puts it, but it's also true, which is why it is so outrageous that you have Tucker Carlson on his show attacking people for wearing masks, making a call for Americans to attack any people they see wearing masks and to call the police on people if their children are wearing masks, and to call Child Protective Services. I mean, as a woman of color, that is a threat. That is a direct threat.
And it's so contrary to the principles that the conservatives actually project that they believe in, which is freedom. And everybody's saying, "Oh, you can't tell me what to do." And he's saying, you go and call the cops on people. Call them until someone comes. And it's like, this is bad news for everyone in the communities. You know, leave us alone. I want to be able to freely walk down the street or into a public place with a mask on and not get attacked.
You know, all of the racist white ladies calling the cops on black and brown people, which is a threat to the lives of black and brown people, given the fact that so many of them disproportionately die in extrajudicial killings at the hands of police. Did you know, Duke? And I was just listening to this statistic yesterday. Since 2005, 15,000 people have been extrajudicially murdered by cops. That's the rate of about 1,000 a year. 60% of those killed were people of color, most of them black. Of those cases in the last 15 years, only 100 and so of them actually led to charges. And of those, only 100 and some that led to charges, only 30 some actually led to convictions. I think it was 38.
Wow.
I mean, think about that. This is the injustice, the pattern and practice of injustice has led to an investigation and a report that was just released by the International Criminal Court at The Hague. And it is not only condemning America for its pattern and its practice of murdering and torturing people of color through policing, running two different systems of justice, one for white people and one for black people, that it is calling for not only an investigation, but criminal prosecution at The Hague of American policing. And I think that it should be a wake-up call to those of us here in the United States about what we need to do to look at the issues that are facing us as far as discrimination goes. I mean, here we have, I can't remember, it was like Mississippi, Kentucky, Arkansas, something, state legislator that was talking about colorblind education. In terms of education, we should teach the good and the bad. So, for example, if you're talking about slavery, teach the good parts of slavery too.
Yeah.
And another legislator says, there is no good about slavery. And he's like, yeah, but you know what I mean. No, we don't. We don't know what you mean. Or how about Rick Santorum in a recent speech that he gave saying that, you know, candidly, there isn't any part of American culture that is based on indigenous culture. Indigenous culture is based,
that's right. Yeah.
You know, the European settlers that came here, they started with a blank slate. There was nothing here. These tone deaf, there is no racism. There is no people of color culture. The erasure of people of color in this country. And the attacks, the thinly veiled, racially violent attacks that are coming from the fake news stories, like the one I just shared with you that Tucker Carlson is propagating, that you should call the cops on, you know, people not wearing masks or children wearing masks. Or furthermore, that he said, we get a fair amount of meningitis cases every year, but we don't make everyone get meningitis vaccines. The man is just a fool because we have somebody call Tucker and tell him we have a vaccine for that. There's a vaccine for meningitis, and most colleges require you to go to school with all your vaccinations. Otherwise, they don't let you in.
Well, even public schools are that way too. You know, you have to have your vaccinations to be in public school because they don't want to spread disease.
Right. And not only do you have all of these fake news stories, you have people making mountains out of molehills. I mean, it's the nicest way I can say what really is going on, which is using reverse racism and fake outrage of oppression, like these anti-maskers running around mocking the Jewish Holocaust by wearing stars of David on their clothes. How disgusting is this? That you have people comparing themselves because they don't want to follow public health regulations, because they don't want to protect people that are unvaccinated and vulnerable, including children, that they would wear a Star of David and compare their inconvenience at having to wear a mask in certain businesses to being in the Jewish Holocaust.
Yeah, and also being a homosexual in the Jewish camps.
That's right, because that's what it equated to, being a homosexual. This is what we have in America on the right, rather than a sober acknowledgement of what is really going on. And apparently now it is just, you know, open season on making up stories. Because if you make up a story, by the time, just like the president said on January 6th when he told everyone to fight like hell, just like he lied about the election results, just like he lied about the possibility of him losing and equated the fact that if he lost, it had to be rigged, which he told us for months. By the time that you have verification in all these states that, nope, there wasn't any voter fraud, except from Republicans. They did find some voter fraud in Pennsylvania, mostly from Republicans, all of whom came from Republicans. But they sold this lie. They told us this lie over and over again, because by the time the truth comes out, by the time they can prove the truth to the folks out there, most of them have already got it in their head that the lie is valid.
Yep.
And that's why you have so many Republicans to this day that believe these fake, these fake stories.
Yep.
So recently, the New York Post came out with this fake story. The New York Post had a story about, in the front page, claiming that a Kamala Harris book had been given to migrant children as part of a welcome kit. That Thousands and thousands of these books had been given to children that were coming across the border, unaccompanied minors, as part of a welcome kit at a shelter in Long Beach, California.
That's so absurd.
The story, of course, it made the front page not only of the New York Post, other Fox-related publications also wrote articles about it, and the conservative media had, a field day with this story. Everybody was talking about it. Senator Tom Cotton, a Republican from Arkansas, wrote on Twitter this weekend on Sunday with a link to the article from the Post saying, now they're forcing taxpayers to buy Kamala Harris's book to give it to illegal immigrants. Of course, he deleted the tweet later because all of it was fake.
That's right.
It was a completely fabricated story. But that didn't stop Ronna McDaniel, the Republican Party chairwoman, from tweeting out, after learning officials are handing out Kamala Harris's book to migrants in facilities at the border, it's worth asking, was Harris paid for these books? Is she profiting from the border crisis? Funnily enough, one of the first comments under this tweet says, "Excuse me, Ronna? Didn't you buy caseloads of Donnie Jr.'s book? Did you think we forgot about that or that we're stupid? Either way, you're way wrong. We clearly remember. Your hypocrisy is rich."
Wow.
And indeed, it is rich, because we just had a scandal with Ted Cruz being investigated because apparently he used campaign money to buy his own book in the same way that the RNC bought a bunch of Don Jr.'s books. So this is a projection of what the Republicans do and are even being investigated for, that they wish was a scandal for our Vice President, Kamala Harris, but that they made up themselves. Like the story of the climate change plan by Biden, planning to take 90% of your beef away. You can only eat 4 pounds of beef a year, and all of this. There was headlines on Fox News saying, "Bye bye burgers." You had that business guy. I can't remember what, Kudlow, a former Trump advisor, Kudlow, going on and on Fox News about how you wouldn't have any meat on your grill on the 4th of July. Forget about, celebrating with a cold brewski.
That's right.
When you're watching, some sporting event, because they're going to make you drink plant-based beers now.
Which, what are beers made of? Budweiser is made from rice, and there's barley. It's like, and what do they make? Beer from meat?
I guess they
beer.
thought that hops was made out of hogs. I don't know. I have no idea what the crazy stuff they're talking about is. But this has been going on all throughout the Biden administration because, he's got his glasses. He's biking around. He's got his cool aviator glasses. And he's always got a quick comeback, a funny comeback. He's got that flashy smile. And he's given us stimulus. He's going to give us infrastructure money. He's going to give us human infrastructure money, free college, free daycare, all of these good things. How can you not like the guy? The guy has an approval rating that we haven't seen since FDR. I mean, they're trying so hard that they're even making up stories to create fake outrage. By the way, this is nothing new. This is par for the course in America. This is what we have been teaching people in the media to do for a very long time. Let me show you what some of the crazy stories that you may recall from earlier during this year that Fox News has put out, all of which are baseless, completely baseless. How about all their cancel culture stories? Starting with Josh Hawley whining about how his publisher decided they wouldn't publish his book because of his acts of treason. Or Fox News warning about Mr. Potato Head being canceled. Again, Mr. Potato Head was not canceled.
That's right.
Or the canceling of the Muppets. Or how they were bemoaning the fact that Oreo tweeted this. Here's the Oreo tweet. Oreo Cookies tweeted that trans people exist. Imagine simply commenting on reality of what is real and having people at Fox News be so outraged that a company would confirm something that exists in the world.
Yep.
Meanwhile, what I think really is going on is that at the same time that they're trying to create fake outrage at Democrats and at the Biden administration, Trump and his party are, bending into pretzels, trying to avoid the fallout from the insurrection, the fallout, the damage that the party took as a result of the horrible pandemic response that killed so many people. So many people in this country lost a family member or more than one family member. I lost 8. I saw people tweeting about how many family members they lost. Most of them are people of color. And I can tell you that when they look at people calling for, harassment of mask wearers and attacks on people who vaccinate themselves, it's outrageous to me as a person that lost so many family members, as it is to every American that lost someone. And that represents a large percentage of the population in this country, specifically because of the horrible handling by the Trump administration. And of course, we learned today that, we've been learning since the insurrection, how many hundreds of MAGA Trump treasonous people have been arrested. They're on the order of 400 or so of them that have been indicted so far. The Justice Department announced they're going to do another 500 or so.
Wow.
We're going to have nearly 1,000 MAGAs that are going to be in jail, that are going to have permanent records, that are going to be known as the traitors of the day. They're going to go down in history. And at the same time, you had people, 146 Republicans that wanted to not vote for the election results to be certified after the Capitol was attacked. You have Trump and his allies going on the news like Ron Johnson and trying to downplay these violent insurrectionists as patriots.
Yeah.
They're trying to cover up the fact. They're trying to turn your attention from the fact that Republicans are being investigated for a whole lot of unsavory things right now, like Matt Gaetz' investigation for sex trafficking.
Oh, yeah.
Or the fact that Rudy Giuliani was raided today. Take a look. This is outside of Rudy Giuliani's. You got it on the next one there? Yep. This is a raid outside of Rudy Giuliani's apartment building. And there was a lot of FBI agents taking a lot of materials out of his home. Take a look. This is from the recount. You see police and federal agents going into. Look at them just streaming in. How many is that?
A bunch.
His son, Andrew Giuliani, was outside to complain. What are they trying to hide? Well, let me tell you, folks. Trump just made an announcement today. On the same day about MAGA rallies coming soon to you. Trump announced today that he's planning a series of rallies starting as early as next week, and says his decision to run in 2024 is tied to Republicans' performance in the midterms elections. Really, though?
Wow.
Really? Because today of all days, when it feels like the sky is falling very close to the Trump family, with his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, being raided, his phones being confiscated. By the way, Rudy Giuliani was on the media. He was held a press conference outside of his daddy's apartment there, pounding his fists in anger about how the Department of Justice has been politicized because, they were allowed to fulfill this search warrant today. But what they don't tell you, what they won't say about this raid, is that federal prosecutors in Manhattan had been pushing since last year for a search warrant to be executed on Giuliani's records, including some of Giuliani's communications. But the officials in the Trump-era Justice Department would not sign off on that request being carried out. The federal prosecutors in Manhattan simply had this ban on them executing the warrant lifted by none other than Merrick Garland. Dun, dun, dun. So all of this, now that, the number 3, Vanita Gupta's in place, now that they're doing investigations into the Minneapolis police and into another state's police, it's kicking off and it's getting closer and closer to Trump. You think that maybe he made this announcement today at the same time that his lawyers are being raided because he thinks somehow that being a candidate for president again will give him some kind of protection? I mean, it seems likely to me because he used the fact that he was president to shield himself from any kind of investigation.
That's right.
Or any kind of charges, including impeachment for the insurrection. The Republicans held I don't know how many hearings and made Hillary Clinton testify for I don't know how many hours because of 7 people that were killed during Benghazi. There was at least that many people that died as a result of the insurrection, not to mention hundreds of arrests with hundreds more to come. And there hasn't been a single official or elected person held accountable for a coup on our country. But now the chickens are coming home to roost. I would guess that getting the Trump rallies going again is, Trump's way of trying to outrun the investigations and the prosecutions that are headed in his direction. But, don't take my word for it. Here is a clip from comedian and ex-employee of the reality show that Trump had, The Apprentice. This is comedian Noel Castler, who left the, reality TV show production gig after he worked for Trump because he broke his NDA and has been spilling the beans on Trump and everything Trump related for a long time. And here's some of the things he had to say about Giuliani. You should think about the significance of Giuliani being raided today.
Oh, yeah.
And the significance of how he is connected and how corrupt he is to Trump. Take a listen for yourselves.
Giuliani he wasn't, people say, America's mayor. The guy was an egomaniac narcissist. I could do a whole show on that. I've worked with the guy on shows. He's horrible. I tell people this, you think Donald Trump is bad? You meet Rudy Giuliani. The guy is he's been a partner with Trump in everything, and going after the mob, and letting the Russians come into like what used to be the Italian mob. Like Rudy is as corrupt a man as New York City has ever produced. And he rose to power on that same law and order thing. And Trump saw that, it wasn't like Rudy wasn't one of Trump's main advisors. Rudy tried to be president too, and he got prostate cancer and he had to drop out. That was years, before. But Rudy's whole life was photo ops. 9/11 he turned into a photo op. That's why the command center was down at the World Trade Center and why it was destroyed. All the chiefs told him, put it out in Brooklyn. They're going to attack the World Trade Center. Give us a place where we're going to be able to communicate with our people. It'll get destroyed if you put it down there. But Rudy wanted to be able to walk from City Hall down there when something happened, so the press could show him showing up on the scene. And I lived across the street from him when all that went down, from Gracie Mansion. And when he told everybody the air was safe to breathe, he was coming home every night with a mask on his face for months until December, and everyone knew the air wasn't safe to breathe. I mean, it was horrific. It was this acrid, horrible smoke, and Giuliani didn't care about that. He capitalized on 9/11 every opportunity he could. He made millions traveling the world afterwards talking about security, and the guy made it worse.
This is the same guy that on Insurrection Day, January 6th, was at a podium saying, if we're wrong, they'll make fools out of us. But if we're right, a lot of them will go to jail. So let us have trial by combat. Don't think that he is off the hook. All of his lying and all of his lies are going to catch up to him, to Sidney Powell, to Lynn Wood. All of these crooked attorneys that have lied, they will be held accountable. But what's a bigger story than Rudy Giuliani being searched, raided, having his telephones confiscated? The fact that Rudy Giuliani's lawyer, Victoria Tonsing, also got raided today. FBI agents have also executed a search warrant at the D.C. area home of Victoria Tonsing, a lawyer close to Rudy Giuliani who had dealings with the Ukrainians involved in the effort to find damaging information about the Bidens. Oh, this is getting juicier and juicier and juicier by the minute. And you know what else? I think that when this Matt Gaetz sex trafficking scandal broke, we also learned about his 17-year-old adoption of a Puerto Rican orphan. Very interesting, that we never knew about before. And then he was interviewed by Tucker Carlson on Tucker Carlson's show, and he asked Tucker Carlson with regard to a dinner that Matt Gaetz said he had with Tucker and his wife on live television. He said, well, you remember a young lady I had dinner with you and your wife. And Tucker's like, I have no
I don't remember.
idea who
I
you're
don't know you.
talking about. And then after the interview with Matt Gaetz, he said, that was the most bizarre interview I have ever done.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? I think all of these people are running and hiding from their own past, from their own ugly faux pas, the skeletons in their closets, like the one that was recently uncovered in Tucker Carlson's college yearbook when he was 22 years old. He tried to come out in front of the story by saying, Soros has been, or not Soros, what's his name? The owner of Amazon. Bezos.
Bezos, yes.
They also have the same os at the end.
That's right.
Bezos has been digging around with my old college friends to try to find out if I was naughty when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
22 years old is not a teenager. You know what is a teenager? the age of the girl that was allegedly having sex with Matt Gaetz.
Exactly.
That's a teenager. This picture from your college yearbook is when you were 22. And it says that he was a member of the Dan White Society. You can see there, this has been verified as a correct entry. This is not a doctored entry. I mean, it's highlighted, but that's the exact thing that Tucker Carlson put in his yearbook to commemorate his college years. And what, you might ask yourself, is the Dan White Society? Well, there's actually no evidence that such a society existed or exists, or any information about what the society does or did. But if you look up who is that man, Dan White, he's the person that murdered Harvey Milk.
Yeah.
One of our very first openly gay politicians in California. He was murdered in cold blood in a heinous hate crime because of his homosexuality.
Yep.
He was murdered because he was an open homosexual in politics. And that was what Tucker Carlson wanted to celebrate, that he was a part of. An anti-gay hating group. A murder people that are gay because they're gay group. That's what he was espousing. But the idea that you would create fake outrage, fake stories, essentially clickbait, that is focused on just tearing down the left for no good reason, with no foundation, that's something that the media has been doing for a while, whether it's Newsmax or OAN or Fox News. This has been going on, and the people that are producing that media know it. And just like that New York Post author quit her job, she resigned from her job at the New York Post after many years of being a very well-liked journalist there, because she was forced by Rupert Murdoch's publication to write that fake story about Kamala Harris. Kalen Robb of Rebel Media is also speaking out. And just listen to what he says was the culture of right-wing media with regards to creating or inventing stories for clickbait.
Joining us. So you specialize in getting these far-right clips to go viral. So what was the formula that you found worked best?
Well, when I first started all this, I had been consuming radical content on YouTube for about 6 months. After the Orlando shooting, I remember I typed that theme into YouTube and was inundated with YouTube videos from Rebel Media and One American News Network type channels, and ended up going down that rabbit hole. I ended up becoming a correspondent for Rebel Media, of which I obtained millions of views. And my boss always told me, and the bosses of these other organizations always told me, that we should never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And if we can get people angry, and if we can get people upset, then we can make more money, we can make more profit, and we can drive the algorithms to keep pushing these videos. It's what made me feel very disenfranchised and end up speaking out about it all in the end. But as someone who really believed in it and believed that, free speech was under attack and that the West was being invaded and all these ideas that they were pushing, I really felt that if I had to take part in disinformation and take part in bending the truth, that it was for the greater good. But actually my bosses and the people at the top of this ecosystem, from Newsmax and all these organizations, from Project Veritas, which collaborated with Rebel at the time, it was all fair game because the left were just so terrible. But actually, the kind of tactics that they were engaged in, and even myself now looking back were engaged in, were far worse than the quote-unquote liberal media and CNN and any of these groups ever took part in. It was completely devoid of any realism or any journalism. We would go to quote-unquote no-go zones in 2018 when Fox News would hype up that whole situation, and we would create conflict and then selectively edit it, to look like those areas were far more dangerous than they were. Those videos would obtain millions and millions of views. Again, I regret that massively. The only reason I did it was because I was radicalized by those people and felt like it was for the greater good, and it was a bit of a cult, but those people profited massively from it, and it was always about pushing disinformation. Alex Jones, who I spent a lot of intimate time with, and a lot of the people that employed me, told me openly that they thought the whole Pizzagate stuff and the paedophile stuff and all the stuff that they were pushing is something that they don't really care about or really believe in. But it whips up their audience into anger, and it gets them to buy products on their news nights.
And it gets them to buy products. It whips up anger. Remember, he said that OAN, the heads of these other groups, Alex Jones, all these people that he worked with and worked for, said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And that somehow the ends justify the means. That Democrats are such awful people, that the left is so horrible, that, taking part in misinformation is part of the greater goal, the greater good, right? The ends do not justify the means. Lying takes away your credibility, and the GOP is so far in the hole right now.
That's right.
What you're doing is unpopular. It may sell some pillows for the moment. It may sell some merch in the moment and get you some money today. Because like Mike Lindell, he's going to be on Jimmy Kimmel tonight, and he's there to sell pillows. He's there to sell bedding. He's there to sell his merch. He's there to sell his new platform and what have you. He doesn't care that Jimmy Kimmel's been making fun of him for months. Well, he doesn't care about that.
He needs to make $1.6 billion, right? So he's got to sell a lot of pillows to have that happen.
Right? How is he going to get out of the hole of this Dominion lawsuit? But the fact of the matter is, in the end, these people are hurting not only themselves, not only are they shooting the GOP party in the leg, they're also hurting Americans. They're also flaming conspiracy theories. This Minnesota GOP event recently had a conspiracy theorist from New Zealand or Australia. His name is Trevor Loudon. He was brought in to speak at this Republican Party hosted dinner where he told people a bunch of conspiracy theories, among them that Paul Wellstone is a full-on Marxist and a complete communist at the time that he was serving in office. Can you imagine that? I mean, you're Minnesotan, so you know how ridiculous that sounds to Minnesotans.
Exactly.
But he also went on to say that over 100 members of Congress need to be investigated for espionage.
Oh.
He said hundreds of your Democratic colleagues are working for foreign governments and the communist and Islamic movements. He also said that the killing of George Floyd and all of the protests that happened afterward had been planned since 2016.
Wow.
This was planned since 2016, folks. This was all organized by a group headquartered here in Minnesota called the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. That's what this crazy man said. He also pushed the conspiracy theory that the Chinese government planned the pandemic to hurt President Trump so that he would lose the 2020 election. He also claimed that the voting machines were rigged, the same lie that President Trump and that all of these other surrogates of Trump's have been spreading. And he continued to advance the idea that conservative states and counties need to band together to defy legislation from Democrats. Not exactly a secession from the Union, but sort of. He said, quote, "I don't mean to leave the Union. I want to go back to that, people, so you can join together and you tell a federal government we will not implement any unconstitutional directives in our states." Remember that right after the insurrection, they were actually pushing for seceding from the Union.
That's right.
Just like after, during the Civil War. And when asked about this, Republicans here in the state of North Dakota, they were dismissive about the far right-wing label given to Mr. Loudon by the Southern Poverty Law Center, saying that, if the Southern Poverty Law Center has a problem with Trevor Loudon, I would tell you that Republicans and conservatives have equal problems with the Southern Poverty Law Center. So there. And they did not return calls seeking comment at the office of Senator Michael Grogan of Red Wing, Minnesota. But their website had, this dinner was a resounding success. And this isn't the first time that the Wabash, Minnesota GOP has cozied up to extremist views. Last year, the party was condemned by Jewish organizations after an image comparing the mask mandate to Nazi Germany.
Oh, wow.
Persecution of Jewish people was posted on the Wabash County GOP's Facebook page, bringing us right back to full circle to where we started off with the state of America, where we will not even do the basic things to protect Americans from a pandemic.
Yeah.
That's where we are. But folks, let me tell you, I hope that everyone is going to be tuning in to the State of the Union tonight to listen to President Biden tell us about all of the hopeful things that we can expect in the future, and to remind us of all of the great things that have happened in his first 100 days. I don't think they can knock this president down. His approval rating is sky high, and there are only better things coming in the future in the next 100 days. So keep an eye out for that, and keep an eye out for all of the things that the GOP and their media allies are trying to hide and deflect from, because I'll be watching here at A Mexican Crossing Lines. Thanks for watching today. Thanks for sharing this show. That's all we have for you tonight. Have a blessed evening. I'm Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And I'm Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Good night and God bless.